It was late evening when Adil dragged his suitcase up to the third floor. The hostel hallway here felt different, quieter, cooler. The paint on the walls was newer than the rest of the building, but it couldn't hide the faint smell of damp wood. Room 309 stood at the very end, its door perfectly clean. Too clean, like it had been replaced recently. The seniors watched from the stairwell. One of them muttered, "Hope he makes it till December." Adil ignored them and unlocked the door. Inside, the air was still. Not stale, but still, like it had been waiting for him. He set down his bag, noticed the old metal bed frame, the narrow study desk by the window, and a wardrobe with a mirror that tilted slightly forward. The CCTV camera above his door blinked red. Its reflection glowed faintly in the mirror. That night, as he unpacked, he heard a noise, a soft creak. The door had moved, just a fraction. And in the CCTV feed on his phone, he saw something impossible. The timestamp jumped ahead 3 seconds. But he was still sitting on the bed the whole time. The next day was normal. Classes, cafeteria food, and bad tea. But when Adil came back to room 309, he noticed something strange. The bed wasn't where he'd left it. It had shifted, maybe an inch, closer to the wardrobe. He laughed it off. Maybe he'd just remembered wrong. He sat at the desk to study. The chair wobbled slightly, like one leg wasn't even on the floor. When he checked, the floorboard beneath it dipped, then slowly rose back. As if something beneath had been breathing. Adil froze. The air in the room was warmer now. Not from the heater. That was off. On the desk, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Don't talk about it. It can hear you." He looked around. The window was shut. No one outside. And in the corner of his eye, the wardrobe mirror tilted forward another fraction, like it was trying to look at him. The hostel's night guard owed Adil a favor. So after dinner, Adil convinced him to pull up the CCTV feed from the previous night. The hallway camera was clear. Timestamp, 2:13 a.m. Adil could see himself sleeping. Door shut, lights off. The video played fine, until it didn't. At exactly 2:14:07, the feed glitched. The screen went black for 3 seconds. When the image returned, Adil was no longer in bed. He was standing in the far corner, facing the wall, completely still. The night guard frowned. Was anyone else inside? Adil didn't answer, because he could see something the guard hadn't noticed. In the 3 seconds of static, the bed had moved again, and the wardrobe door was now slightly open. That night, Adil couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw himself, standing in that corner from the CCTV footage. The exact corner where the wardrobe stood. At 2:13 a.m., the hostel was dead silent. But at 2:14, the time from the video, he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from inside the wardrobe. Adil sat up, heart pounding. The knocks grew slower, then stopped. He told himself not to move. But the wardrobe door, the same one he'd seen open in the CCTV, creaked wider on its own. From the darkness inside, a whisper came out. Low, breathy, like someone was standing inches from the door. "It's your turn now." Adil's breathing grew loud in his own ears. He told himself it was just a prank, someone from the hostel messing with him. But deep down, he knew no one was awake. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Step inside." Before he could think, Adil's legs carried him toward the wardrobe. His fingers touched the wood, cold, damp. Inside, it wasn't just dark, it was wrong. The air was thicker, heavier, like it was alive. The smell, a mix of wet soil and rusted metal, clawed its way into his nose. He reached in, expecting to feel the back wall, but his hand kept going and going, like the wardrobe had no end. Something brushed his fingertips. Not wood, not clothes. Something warm. And it grabbed him back. Adil yanked his arm back, but the thing inside didn't let go. The wardrobe trembled. A low groan rolled through the floorboards, like the whole building was breathing. He tried to shout, but the air in the room felt thicker now, like it was being pulled somewhere else. Every light flickered, then dimmed until the only glow came from the CCTV's red recording dot. On the monitor screen, Adil could see himself standing at the wardrobe, but the other him, the one in the grainy footage, was smiling. The wardrobe door slammed shut. Every wall in the room stretched outward, the corners bending like soft clay. The ceiling lowered, slow and heavy. The whispers weren't just in his head anymore. They were around him, inside the walls, under the floor. Stay with us. We're so lonely. The doorknob rattled. Then it turned on its own. And Adil realized the room wasn't keeping something out. It was keeping him in. Outside, in the hostel security office, the night guard sipped his tea, staring at the wall of CCTV screens. Room 309's feed flickered, then went completely black for 2 seconds. When the picture returned, the room looked perfectly normal. Wardrobe shut, lights steady, empty. No sign of Adil. The guard frowned, rewound the footage. There he was, entering the room at 9:42 p.m., dropping his bag, moving toward the wardrobe. Then, a sudden distortion, like the tape itself twisted. Frame by frame, Adil's body blurred, until it was just static. When the image cleared, he was gone. But the wardrobe door, in the corner of the screen, was now slightly open, just enough for a shadowed hand to slowly slide back inside. The guard froze, because in every case before, the pattern was the same. 1 year later, someone else would get assigned room 309. 1 year later, rain hammered against the hostel windows, each drop tapping like impatient fingers. The warden slid a key across the desk to a tall, quiet boy named Saad. 309, the warden said. End of the hall. Saad smiled politely, not noticing how the warden's eyes didn't quite meet his. The hallway was long, lit by flickering tubes. Water stains bloomed across the ceiling. The carpet muffled his footsteps until he reached the door, freshly painted black. Its number plate old, scratched, and bent at one corner. Inside, the air was wrong. Heavy, like it had been holding its breath for too long. He set his bag down, checked the wardrobe. Empty, except for a single folded shirt in the corner. Old, collar-stained. He lifted it. Inside the collar, stitched in fading thread, was a name, Adil. Before he could process it, the wardrobe door slammed shut. Saad spun, but the room looked exactly the same. Only, the bed wasn't empty anymore. Someone was lying under the blanket, completely still. He stepped closer, hand trembling, and slowly pulled the blanket back. It was him, his own face, eyes open, smiling. The lights went out. I used to stay at a cheap roadside motel whenever I drove long distances for work. It wasn't the kind of place anyone would recommend. The neon sign out front flickered half the time, buzzing like an angry insect. The paint was peeling, the parking lot was cracked, and weeds pushed through the asphalt. But it was cheap, and usually empty, which meant I could check in late without hassle. One night, after a 10-hour drive that left my body aching and my eyes stinging, I pulled in just past midnight. The lobby smelled faintly of cigarettes and mildew. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered as if they hadn't been changed in years. Behind the counter sat a tired-looking man, his uniform shirt wrinkled. He barely looked up from the small TV propped in the corner as I gave him my ID. His voice was flat, almost rehearsed, when he handed me the key. Room 12, end of the hall, he said. The hallway leading to my room was narrow and dim, lit by buzzing ceiling lights spaced too far apart. The carpet was threadbare, stained in places with shapes I didn't want to identify. My footsteps echoed more than they should have for such a small motel. Finally, I reached the door. The number 12 hung slightly crooked on the metal plate. The key rattled in the lock before it finally clicked open. Inside, It was exactly what you'd expect from a cheap roadside motel. Beige wallpaper, curling at the edges, stained carpet that smelled faintly of dampness, a humming AC unit beneath the window, rattling like it was struggling to stay alive. The bedspread was a dull floral pattern, faded from years of use. I didn't care. I was too tired. I tossed my bag onto the chair, locked the door, and collapsed onto the bed. My body melted into the mattress, and before long, I was drifting towards sleep. That's when I heard it. At first, it was faint. A soft, irregular tapping sound. I assumed it was the AC, maybe loose parts knocking around inside. But after a few minutes, I realized it wasn't mechanical. It was deliberate. 3 slow knocks, coming from the wall right next to the bed. I sat up, my eyes fixed on the thin motel wall. The sound had been so clear, so close, that I half expected to see an outline of someone pressing against it. I reminded myself that the receptionist had said only 2 other rooms were booked that night, both on the opposite side of the building, which meant the room next to mine should have been empty. I swallowed hard, trying to shake it off. Probably pipes. Old motels like this always had strange noises. I lay back down, forcing myself to ignore it. Minutes passed. Just when I thought I could relax, it came again. This time slower, louder, like a fist pressing against the wall, testing it. Almost as if it was waiting for me to respond. A tight pressure spread through my chest. I grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV, letting its static voices fill the silence. The glow of the screen comforted me enough to eventually drift into uneasy sleep. But around 2 a.m. I woke up. The TV was off. The room was completely dark. I don't remember turning it off. The air was heavy, suffocating. For a moment, all I heard was the low hum of the AC. Then, scratching. Not knocks this time, but long, deliberate scratches dragging across the wall. The sound was slow, methodical, almost patient, as though whatever was behind the wall wasn't trying to scare me, but communicate with me. I couldn't move. My eyes stayed locked on that wall, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out the AC. With trembling hands, I reached for my phone on the nightstand. My thumb hovered over the screen, ready to dial the front desk. But the scratching stopped, and the silence that followed was worse. I sat there in the dark, paralyzed, every second stretching into eternity. That's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. The nightstand drawer. It was pulled open. Just a crack. I froze. My mind raced. I hadn't touched it. I was certain. Swallowing my fear, I forced myself to move. My legs felt weak as I stepped toward the drawer. Slowly, with my fingertips, I pushed it shut. The sound of wood sliding against wood was deafening in the silence. I turned back toward the bed, and my heart nearly stopped. The blanket. It was pulled down to the floor. Not crumpled like I had kicked it off, but deliberately dragged, as though someone had slid out from underneath it. My entire body went cold. Every instinct screamed at me to get out. I didn't even think. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and bolted for the door. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I sprinted down the hallway, my footsteps echoing like gunshots, until I burst into the lobby. The man at the front desk looked up in surprise as I slammed the key down, my words tumbling out in panic as I tried to explain. He just shook his head slowly, his expression unreadable. "That room's been closed off for months," he said quietly. "No one stays in room 12. Confused and shaking, I watched as he flipped through the logbook. He ran his finger down the page, frowning. "You weren't supposed to have that key," he muttered. "Room 12 isn't even listed for rent anymore." I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry, my thoughts racing. I didn't argue. I didn't ask for another room. I just walked out, climbed into my car, and drove off into the night. The whole drive home, the image replayed in my mind. The sound of scratching, the nightstand drawer, the blanket pulled to the floor. And the worst part? The undeniable feeling that whatever had been in that room with me hadn't wanted me to leave. I was coming home late one night after work, too tired to drive, so I decided to take the bus. It was one of those nearly empty night routes, the kind that rattles along deserted streets under flickering streetlights. When I stepped inside, there were only 3 other passengers. An older man with a crumpled newspaper sat by the window near the front. A young woman in a hoodie had her headphones in, and at the very back was another man, staring out the window with his face half hidden in shadow. I chose a seat in the middle, trying not to look at anyone too closely. The atmosphere felt heavy, like the kind of silence that isn't really empty. Every bump of the bus echoed too loudly. Every hiss of the brakes seemed to linger in the air longer than it should. About 10 minutes in, I noticed something strange. The man at the back. He hadn't moved at all since I got on. Not a shift, not a blink. His head was tilted just slightly toward the aisle, like he was listening. At first I thought maybe he was asleep, but when the driver braked suddenly at a stop sign, his body didn't jerk, didn't react. It was as if he hadn't even felt the motion. The bus rolled on. One by one, the passengers got off. The old man with the newspaper left after 2 stops. The woman in the hoodie a few stops later. That left just me and the man in the back. I tried to ignore him, telling myself I was being paranoid. But then I realized something that froze my stomach. In the reflection of the bus window, I could see the rows of seats behind me. And in that faint, dark reflection, there was no one sitting at the back. The seat was empty, but when I turned my head to look directly, he was still there. I swallowed hard, telling myself maybe it was the glare or my eyes playing tricks. I gripped the pole next to me and stared straight ahead. The bus kept moving, but I noticed we weren't stopping anymore. We passed stop after stop, the little green button to request a stop glowing faintly, but the driver didn't pull over. I finally stood up and walked toward him. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaky. "This isn't my stop, but could you let me off here?" The driver didn't answer. He didn't even glance at me. His hands were locked on the wheel, his eyes fixed on the road. I glanced at the little mirror above him, the one bus drivers use to keep an eye on passengers. My heart nearly stopped. In that mirror, there was no reflection of me, just the rows of seats, and that figure at the back, slowly rising. I turned around, and sure enough, the man was standing now, but I still couldn't make out his face. His head seemed bowed, the shadows clinging unnaturally around him, even though the bus lights flickered above. Step by step, he started moving forward. I panicked and rushed to the side door, slamming my hand against the button to open it. Nothing happened. The bus didn't stop. The doors stayed sealed. The man's slow, deliberate footsteps echoed closer, heavier with each step, though I couldn't see his feet moving. I banged on the driver's partition. "Hey, stop the bus, please!" But it was useless. He was frozen, locked in that same position, as if carved into the seat. The figure was only a few seats away now. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. His head lifted just slightly, and for the first time I saw his face, or rather, the absence of one. His skin was smooth, featureless, like clay before it's been shaped. I stumbled backward, tripping into the last row of seats. When I blinked, he was suddenly right in front of me, inches away. The air around me felt ice cold, pressing against my chest. And then the bus screeched to a halt. The doors hissed open. I didn't wait. I bolted, sprinting out into the empty street. When I turned back, expecting to see the bus idling behind me, it was gone. The street was silent. No headlights, no sound of an engine. Just the dark, empty road stretching in both directions. To this day, I don't know if I ever made it off that bus, or if I never really got on in the first place.